All right, BMNR is back in the game and up about 20% today. We're going to talk about MSTR and the things that are going on online in terms of certain people trying to push down the stock price. And we're going to hear from Saylor on that. And then we're going to talk a little bit about what this means for MSTR and talk a little bit about overall what's going on in the marketplace. So, not tax advice, not financial advice, not legal advice. Do your own research. Also, good news came in today. Trump posted that him and President Yi are going to be meeting, and they just had a nice phone call this morning. And Trump got invited to China in April, and so some of that pumped the markets a little bit by Trump's very agreeable posts with him and China and President Yi. So that's always good to see stuff like that, and good news as well. So let's hear from Michael Saylor first, about what he says in response to JPMorgan, and we're going to hear that now. And if you want to get my book down below, you can grab it. Money Game is the book. One of my our community members just texted me today and said he made 5.7% on a trade today with BMNR. Another one of our community members made 2.3%. So people are applying our trading strategy every single day and week. And when the markets are down, my goal is always to pick up more shares. When the markets go up, my goal is to pick up more shares. So I trade. And in case you're new to the show, I wrote a whole book, Money Game, that's on the general economy of the new digital financial system that we're in, and talks about the old traditional financial system as well, talking about MSTR, BMNR, Bitcoin, Ethereum. It's all in the book. And also you get a free video with it. It's all free down below. Go snag it. Let's hear from our fearless leader, Michael Saylor, and hear what he has to say.
That came out this morning warning that I just want to ask you about the JPMorgan report that came out this morning warning that strategy could be excluded from benchmarks like NASDAQ, MSCI, and it could trigger an estimated $2.8 billion in automatic outflows. That's just from the MSCI alone. What's your response to that?
I think it's a bit alarmist. I'm not so sure the numbers are nearly that high. I think actually the numbers would be much smaller. I also think it's already priced into the market by a factor of 10 if you count it. I don't think there's any relationship between the decision-making of MSCI and the NASDAQ 100 or the S&P 500 index allocators. The company is an operating company. It's just like insurance companies use capital in order to create financial products, and banks use capital to create financial products. We use capital to create digital credit finance products. It's possible there are people in the world that don't fully appreciate digital credit or digital treasuries. That wouldn't surprise me. We had that challenge with bankers that didn't want to bank Bitcoin. We had that challenge with accountants that were a little bit skeptical of digital assets accounting. The accountants embraced the asset, the bankers embraced the asset, the politicians embraced the asset. We had the challenge with credit rating agencies, and they just embraced the asset. We're starting to get credit ratings. We have the challenge under the Basel Accords, where Basel Accords allocate zero value to Bitcoin, and now they've announced they're going to reconsider that. So I'm not concerned that we have these kind of concerns.
There you go. Hearing from Saylor on his response to the question about JPMorgan. Ultimately, strategy is not going to be subject to an index fund, and that's not their whole future. And he's saying that in pretty simple terms. So let's take a look here. More data on things behind the October 10th crash. We know that Bitcoin's up today. It went up to 89,000. BMNR went up 20% today. Strategy went up a little bit today, but here's some more data on the crash of October 10th, of why the market crashed really hard, and we're going to get into it, okay? So MSCI made a silent announcement. So that's the Morgan Stanley Capital Index here. And they made a silent announcement, and they said they might start removing companies from their global index if 50% or more of their assets are in Bitcoin or digital money, and if they operate like a Bitcoin treasury company. Hint, hint, that's MSTR, right? If that happens, big funds that follow MSCI rules will be forced to sell those company stocks, all right? So they have to sell, they don't get to choose. And guess who's the biggest target? Strategy, So if index funds sell strategy, then MSTR stock drops, people get scared, Bitcoin could fall too, panic increases, more selling happens, et cetera, okay? So it becomes a domino effect, and that's part of what happened on October 10th. Before MSCI's message, the market was already stressed. So you already had the news that was coming in of the tariff news and the Nasdaq falling and lots of leverage in the marketplace and people fearing that the Bitcoin cycle top is near. And then MCI's note came out. So that's when it came out and people freaked out and they thought, what if all the big funds dump MSTR? What will happen to Bitcoin? And so, boom, you had one of the biggest liquidation crashes in crypto history. 3 days later, JPMorgan released a bearish report saying the same thing. And they released it at the worst moment where Bitcoin was weak, MSTR was weak, liquidity was low, everyone was scared already, and that made panic even worse. Prices dropped even more. We all lived through it. Massive liquidations, freaked everybody out. And big banks, you know, they sometimes, let's say, do this on purpose, okay? Sometimes. I'm not going to say an all statement here. Just sometimes this happens. They scare people. Retail sells. They buy cheap. Later, they turn positive. So we're starting to see this happen in the marketplace, and the prices rebounded on Bitcoin. I would not say we're out of the woods yet at all, but at least we had some bullish news today, and there was a nice rebound. But it's just, you know, Wall Street plays this game. They've been playing it for a long time. So to think they're not going to get in the game and start trying to scoop up the Bitcoin. We know they're already in the game with building on Ethereum, and they're not stupid. They want Bitcoin. And so if they can pick it up at a lower price, they're going to figure. In the marketplace, you get retail to doubt the heck out of what they're doing. You get all the people who are new to the game who get afraid and they sell, and then they start picking up more and more dough, more and more Bitcoin, I should say. So that's part of the game. It's part of what happens. And somebody in the chat box is happy because they bought BMNR at an average of 34. So they're happy it's going back up. I'm happy for you. Very happy for you. Okay. So here you go from Saylor, where he's saying here that strategy is not a fund. So this is kind of his response to the MSCI index matter. Okay. So he says strategy is not a fund, not a trust, not a holding company. We're a publicly traded operating company with $500 million software business and a unique treasury strategy that uses Bitcoin as productive capital. This year alone, we've completed the 5 public offerings of digital credit securities. So if you're new to this channel, you know we've been talking about this for the last 9 months, 10 months maybe. Strike, Strife, Stride, Stretch, you know, all these different products that are out there that represents, you know, $7.7 billion in notional value. So those products are backed by, basically what that means is those products are backed by about $7.7 billion in Bitcoin. Okay. And they've also recently launched Stretch, their revolutionary Bitcoin-backed treasury credit instrument that provides variable monthly USD yield to institutional retail investors. So simplicity, if you don't know anything about these products, I've studied and researched a lot on this. You can go read my book down below. There's an entire chapter devoted to it, but here's the 30-second summary on it. These products are simple. They are not, you know, I'm a common shareholder, so I have common shares of Strategy. I own a lot of common shares and I'm not selling it. And there are people out there who want less risk. So they'll put their money into products like this. On average, these products will pay anywhere from 8 to 10%. And so when you compare these products to a bond that somebody's going to go out and buy in the marketplace and get 5%, and these products are paying 10%, they're paying almost double. And the reason he's able to do it with these products is pretty simple, is because he has a treasury with Bitcoin in it, and all these products are backed by Bitcoin. So he goes out in the marketplace, he raises money, people will give him money, and he'll go buy Bitcoin with it. And in return, he promises these people who buy Strike and Strife and Stride and Stretch, in so many words, I'm making this simple, but he promises to pay out a dividend on it. So these are referred to as preferred stocks, but you can kind of see them as like fixed instruments more, say, because they pay kind of a fixed return that varies a little bit, but it's basically a 10%, 8% return. So these products are a huge part of their strategy. If you're also new to what MSCR is doing, they went into Europe recently and they issued $715 million worth of stretch, which is one of these products here that you see listed in his post. So they're in the game, and this just shows you all the different ways they have to raise capital to buy more Bitcoin. And so, you know, anybody getting freaked out by the MSCI thing about strategy could be removed from the index. Like, the strategy's business model is not dependent on indexes. Would it be nice to have an index that flows a bunch of money into strategy? Yes. Is it helpful? Is strategy's future dependent on that? No, it's not. And so these types of announcements that come out, they're made for whatever reason. You know, people need to do what's in their best interest to control the funds. I'm not pointing fingers at anybody. And strategy is what's going to do in their best interest for the shareholders, and they're going to continue to buy Bitcoin. So strategy is not going away. Strategy is not getting liquidated. Strategy is not going out of business. Strategy is not selling their Bitcoin. And so Saylor goes on to say, funds and trusts passively hold assets. Holding companies sit on investments. We, meaning strategy, create, structure, issue, and operate. Our team is building a new kind of enterprise. And I think this is really important because you look at strategy, they're building a Bitcoin-backed structured finance company with the ability to innovate in both capital markets and software. So really, they're building a finance company that's backed by Bitcoin, okay? And he goes on to say, no passive vehicle or holding company could do what we're doing. And it's true, they can't. And he says it here, index classification doesn't define us. Our strategy is long-term. Our conviction in Bitcoin is unwavering, and our mission remains unchanged to build the world's first digital monetary institution on a foundation of sound money and financial innovation. Okay, so that's the game. This is what he's doing, and he's unwavering to what he's doing. He's not going to back down, and he's going to continue to buy Bitcoin. Strategy is going to continue to buy Bitcoin. And for those of, I hold strategy for the long term, and my time horizon outlook on it right now is 4, 5, 10 years. If it did get to a very high range this time, I would take some profits. But right now I'm just sitting on the asset because I know the future of Bitcoin is super bright. I know the future of this company, which owns 3% of the entire supply of strategy, is incredibly bright. And I know that they have a 9% or 10% debt structure. So they hardly have any debt. They're so overcapitalized, and they're going to have no issues paying their dividend payments out to these investors who buy Strife and Stride and Strike and all that different stuff. Okay, so that is not a problem at all. And there's, you hear from Saylor, we're not a fund, we are a real company that builds software and creates new financial products. Okay, so MSTR has got this $500 million software business, and mainly their value is they create new Bitcoin-based credit products, which is so simple to say, which is basically, you give me money, I'll pay you dividend, like 10% dividend, and I'll buy Bitcoin with your money. And my word to pay you that 10% rate of return, meaning Saylor saying this, we can pay you 10% when you give us your money, because we have a treasury that's filled with Bitcoin, which is the most sound money on planet Earth. So there you have it. Okay, so they're innovating, not just holding Bitcoin. They're innovating, and they're creating all these cool financial products. So his message is, labels don't define us. We are builders. And MSCI's final decision comes in January 2026. Policies start February 2026. Until then, the market could stay bumpy, could go up some more. We'll see. We all know that the market's been shaken from the October 10th event. And even though we have a run up, it doesn't seem we're fully out of the woods on this. There's still extreme fear in the marketplace. And there's a lot of confusion because of events like this. And when events like this happen, it's very easy to get confused. When events like this happen, it's very easy to get uncertain and get fearful, because it's like, where is it coming from? Who's doing it? Why are they doing it? Like, why wouldn't people want to see Bitcoin succeed? But also, if you watched my video the other day, the number of drawdowns that we've had with Bitcoin in the marketplace in terms of 2020 through 2021, which was a bull market. When we had 2017 and 2018, and even 2024 and 2025. If you go back and look at that data, we had many 30% drawdowns and 40% drawdowns in 2017, 2018. We had multiple 40% drawdowns and many 30% drawdowns in 2020, 2021. And we've had multiple drawdowns this year already. So Bitcoin drawing down is not a new thing. But when you have new assets like strategy, which is super volatile, and BMNR, which is super volatile, you know, when Bitcoin takes a dump 30%, those are going to take a dump even larger. And that's what we've seen. So that's the game. That's basically what's happening in the marketplace. And long term, I continue to hold my strategy and will continue to hold my strategy. So there you go. Okay. So these are some FUD claims. There was a great video that Adam Livingston put out the other day. I'm going to give you some summarized points here of what he pointed out about the claims that people are making. He said claim number one is MSTR is getting kicked off Nasdaq. That's so not true. Like the MSCI in relation to them being on the Nasdaq, they're two separate things and they're not correlated. Okay. So MSTR is not getting delisted. None of that's true. Sounds scary, but totally false. A whole bunch of crap would happen for you to get delisted from the Nasdaq. The price of your stock would have to be under $1. You'd be committing fraud. Like they're not getting delisted from the Nasdaq. So let's just wipe that out of anything you hear. If you see things, because people put things on headlines to get attention, and it's like so much of the stuff that's being marketed is not true about strategy. So we're just setting the record straight here. Okay. So there's that. Then you have billions of dollars will be dumped overnight. That's not true. So like even if they if this whole thing does go down with strategy and the index funds that they're a part of, like, you know, people are thinking like January 15th, it's coming, it's all going to happen. It's not. There's a real timeline, and the timeline's this December 31st. MSCI stops collecting opinions. So they're basically collecting opinions and data on this whole topic right now about digital treasury companies like strategy. Then on January 15th, MSCI only announces their decision. So they announce their decision. And then on February 2026, maybe changes start slowly on then. And there could be some, you know, some of these index funds selling their strategy shares, right? So there's no sell button or panic dump or anything. This is a timeline that's there. I'm not even going to pay credence to that scary number that they give because whatever. So claim number three, MSTR will always trade cheap now. Not true. Okay. If indexes remove MSTR, it becomes useless. Totally not true. Not true at all in one iota. You have a finance company here that's building their entire empire on Bitcoin. And so if one believes in Bitcoin and understands that Bitcoin is an incredibly sound asset, and if they believe in what strategy is doing, they would see that a lot of this stuff that's being published out there is just to make people fearful. Could it be just to get the markets to dump? Absolutely. Could it be that larger institutions want to pick up Bitcoin at a lower price point? Of course, who wouldn't want to pick it up at a lower price point? So, you know, there's lots of stuff behind this, and this is a whole new game. We're in a completely new world right now. We are not in a retail world. We're in an institutional world. You have lots of players. If you go back and look at this, you know, 4 years ago when we lived through the 2020 to 2021 bull run, you know, you didn't have this type of news of large institutions buying Bitcoin. You didn't have this type of news of digital asset treasury companies. You didn't have this type of news of BMNR putting Ethereum on their balance sheet and people putting Solana on their balance sheet. Like you're getting new news on this stuff all the time. You didn't have the news of nations buying Bitcoin. This is a completely different market. You didn't have the news of all these companies building on Ethereum, from JPMorgan to BlackRock to PayPal to all the companies that I've talked about in my previous videos. So many institutions are building on top of Ethereum. You did not have this type of institutional adoption. So with it, we're going to see some crazy things happen, and this isn't the last of it. So anybody who's lived through a bull and a bear before, you know these types of drawdowns with Bitcoin are not at all new in the slightest bit whatsoever. But the way it's happening now is new, and so it's very different, and it's hard for anybody to explain. And the idea that October and November was supposed to be so amazing, it never happened because of the things I just talked about. So that's what's happening. It's a different world, and I'm just sharing this data because, you know, when things like this happen, we have to get back to the fundamentals of, okay, zoom out. I know it's crazy. There's so much fear in the marketplace, but like, what is strategy actually trying to do? And, you know, if you've watched Saylor's video when he did his Q3 earnings, he talked about one of his mission is to retire millions and millions of people around the world, to be able to provide products like Stretch and Stride and Stripe. So when people retire, instead of getting 4 or 5% off their assets, they can get 10% off these products. So providing, you know, an income stream to people that's backed by a company that has Bitcoin backing it. So the mission of the company is great. I think if you followed Saylor long enough, you could also see the integrity that he has and his company has. You also see the persistence of them continuously buying Bitcoin and continuing to do what they say they're going to do. And people are going to come after companies like this. And if they weren't a threat, you wouldn't hear any news on them. Like, people who aren't a threat don't sit there and get attacked. People who are a threat in the marketplace, meaning they own more than 3% of the supply of Bitcoin, right? What institution is competing with them right now? You have BlackRock, but those who came late to the game and want to scoop up as much Bitcoin as possible because they see it is the future. And trust me, these financial institutions see it is the future. So they're seeing that it's the future. And so strategy becomes a threat, because what if strategy accumulates 4% and then 5% of the supply? And think about what their Bitcoin stack is going to be worth a decade from now, 2 decades from now, 3 decades from now. So if you're a competing financial institution in the traditional marketplace and you see that your competition is showing up, which is a company like Strategy, who owns the most Bitcoin out of any corporation out there, you're probably going to want to do some things to compete and get in their face a little bit and attack them a little bit so you can pick up some of the Bitcoin. And so this won't be the last attack the Strategy gets. It's certainly not the first that they've gotten. And if you watch Saylor's video I played at the beginning of this video, he just handles things with class, man. He handles things with class. So I think he's a classy dude. I think that Strategy is a great company. Yes, they've taken a beating, but I continue to hold on because I'm looking into the future of where this company is going. Okay. So there you go. The current low valuation of Strategy's market fear. It's people guessing worst case things, and people seeing Bitcoin weakness everywhere up until today. We started to see a little rally here. And so then you have the fourth claim that this will force MSTR to sell its Bitcoin. Like, this whole MSCI thing is if this happens, then Strategy is going to have to sell its Bitcoin. I mean, that's not even true at all. Like, not even true. Strategy is not selling their Bitcoin. I don't see any future where that ever happens, where they start selling their Bitcoin. Okay. So that's wrong. All right. So, and just because Strategy, if this rule passes and they have to get rid of, MSTR shares, just because the funds exit the stock, it doesn't mean that Strategy sells their Bitcoin. So if you're hearing that anywhere, that's completely false data. Completely false data. Okay. So some index funds will slowly sell out their shares, but then you'll have new Bitcoin believers come in and buy them, right? People will come in and they'll scoop up Strategy. And also think about the people who own Strategy. 60% of the buyers of Strategy are institutions. So you're not talking at least 50%. So anywhere from 50 to 60% of the companies that hold Strategy are institutions. So, institutions are in this game, and many of them are making decisions for the long run, and they're scooping up Strategy because it's a proxy to Bitcoin. Some of these institutions that have bought Strategy, they can't buy Bitcoin directly. So they go and they buy Strategy. And then one day when governments and all around the world and nations all around the world, and they're like, wow, there's no more Bitcoin left. What do you think they're going to do? They're going to go buy Strategy stock, because it's a proxy to Bitcoin. So they're going to go buy the company that owns the most Bitcoin. So the future of this company's bright. The president sucks. The stock's being manipulated. But here we are, and we're still kicking along, and we're still ticking, right? So there you go. So those are just the things that are happening in terms of the claims about what's happening with Strategy. Some news out there, this destroys corporate Bitcoin adoption. Not true. No company will ever buy Bitcoin again. Not true, right? So treasury companies are still going to be intact. In fact, I think they're going to be the future. I mean, what company down the road is not going to want to have Bitcoin on their balance sheet? So ultimately, if you hear a bunch of this FUD out in the marketplace, and you hear a bunch of this rumor mongering, just step back, realize most of what you hear is not true, and just get the true data, which is what I'm trying to give you here. Okay. So there you have it. Yeah, I'm not going to go through the whole rest of the stuff. Okay. But ultimately, that's what's going on. So in summary, number one, President Trump had a nice tweet out there today, or post, that basically said him and President Yi are getting along very well. They had a nice phone call today. Trump gets invited to China in April, and they're continuing to move along with their agreements, which is always good news for the markets. BMNR had a boomer today. It's up 20%. So it's a nice rebound for BMNR for those of us who've been watching it go down and down and down. Additionally, Saylor gives a good interview about what happened with JPMorgan, and he responds to it and shares what strategy actually is and the type of company that they are. They're a company that's got Bitcoin in the treasury, and they continue to create financial instruments in the marketplace. He calls them credit instruments because basically all that means is somebody gives strategy money, and strategy uses that to buy Bitcoin. And what are they giving strategy money for? Well, in this relationship of these credit-based products, they're giving money for Strike or Strife or Stretch or Stride so they can get an 8 to 10% dividend. And that's for investors who don't want to own the common shares. Okay. So if you hear more news in the marketplace, this gives you a little understanding of what happened on October 10th and how extreme fear was in the marketplace. And this news that was published didn't make it any better. And that's what's happening. Okay. So I hope this serves you. I hope you guys have a great rest of the day. I think at the end of the day, Saylor is a great leader. I think he's got a great business model, and we've gone through a very kind of bearish sentiment. And I hope that things start to turn around and move in the right direction. They're turning around now. I don't think we're out of the woods, but things have been turning around a little bit here. So it's nice to have a good news on a Monday. And we'll see how we shape up the rest of November and December. And, let's make the decision and postulate that into the new year, that 2026, that things will keep running. And we know that Bitcoin is a asset that's not going away. We know that Strategy is a company that won't stop buying Bitcoin, and it's not going away. And we know that BMNR will continue to buy Ethereum, and financial institutions will continue to build on the Ethereum blockchain. And so that's why I'm also still bullish about the future of BMNR, even though we saw it drop all the way down to 25 or 24 or whatever it was. And now it's up around 31-ish or wherever it closed today. So far from where we want it to be, but I think the future is bright long-term. And I think with these treasury companies, you really have to have a long-term horizon. But I hope in the short term, it wins for everybody. Okay. If you want more info on BMNR and MSTR, you can get my book down below. Whole chapters are devoted to it. And if you want to learn more about Ethereum, Bitcoin, also want to learn more about the traditional financial economy and how products stack up to Bitcoin and all these other products, it's all in the book. And if you want to learn anything about trading, I'm trading on a daily basis. And so you've probably heard me talk on the show about how when the market is down, my goal is always to pick up more shares. When the market goes up, I want to pick up more shares, and I do that from trading, not necessarily putting new money in, just trading and picking up more shares. So there's a free video that comes with it. It's all free down below. So snag it, and hope it serves you. And I hope that you had a good day today with some things being up and there being some optimism in the markets. Lord knows everybody deserves it. So have a great rest of the day. I'll see you all soon, and stay well and stay strong. See you soon.